Tensions around the Temple Mount are at an all-time high, and a revolutionary event has lately emerged that has sent shockwaves around the world. The future holds a prophetic event that will cause a massive shift in the political dynamics of this controversial area. So what precisely are we talking about? Stay tuned as we delve into the details of an outcome that has the potential to change the Temple Mount's destiny and spark another phase of debate and conflict. The Temple Mount in Jerusalem is a highly contentious and disputed region that has long been a source of contention between Palestinians, Arabs, and Jews. The Temple Mount has enormous religious, cultural, and national significance for Palestinians and Arabs. They want to seize control of the site and make it their own, seeing it as a symbol of their identity and legacy. Some people want Jews to be barred from visiting the Temple Mount entirely, because they regard Jewish presence as a threat to their claims and aspirations. This exclusionary posture has heightened tensions and resentment among the conflict's various parties. The Temple Mount, on the other hand, is regarded as the holiest site in Judaism by many Jews. It is historically and religiously significant as the site of the first and second Jewish temples. Many Jews visit the place to reconnect with their religious and cultural history. The Temple Mount's opposing narratives and claims have resulted in regular conflicts, protests, and debates over access, prayer rights, and ownership. The geopolitical features of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict complicate matters further, with the Temple Mount serving as a focal point for nationalist sentiments and aspirations. But before we get onto the recent tensions revolving around the Temple Mount, let's get to know its history. The silver-domed mosque, known as Al-Aqsa, rises within its 35-acre enclosure known as Al-Haram al-Sharif, or the Noble Sanctuary. This holy place of prayer is known by two different names. As mentioned, Muslims call it Al-Aqsa, and Jews call it the Temple Mount. This holy place is important for all three Abrahamic faiths, and its meaning goes beyond time and faith. Yet, since Israel took over East Jerusalem, which included the Old City, in 1967, it has become the main source of conflict in the Holy Land. But the roots of this war go back even further, to a time before Israel was even made. Think back to 1947, when the United Nations made a plan to split up historical Palestine, which was then ruled by the British. With this plan, Jews, most of whom were from Europe, and Palestinians would have had their own countries. A Jewish state was given 55% of the land, and a Palestinian state got the other 45%. Jerusalem, which includes the Al-Aqsa compound and is in the middle of this divided country, is run by the United Nations because it is so important to the three Abrahamic faiths. In 1948, the first Arab-Israeli war broke out, which was caused by Israel's declaration of independence. Because of this, Israel took over about 78% of the land, while Egypt and Jordan took control of the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and Gaza. After the Second Arab-Israeli War in 1967, Israel moved in on the land more quickly. This led to the capture of East Jerusalem and the illegal annexation of Jerusalem, including the Old City and Al-Aqsa. This illegal Israeli control of East Jerusalem, which includes the Old City, goes against many rules of international law, which say that an occupying power does not have authority over the land it occupies. Over time, the Israeli government has taken more steps to take control of the Old City and East Jerusalem and change who they are. In 1980, Israel made Jerusalem its complete and united city, which is against international law. But no country in the world recognizes Israel's claim to Jerusalem or agrees with its efforts to change the geography and population of the city. Even though about 400,000 Palestinians were born in Jerusalem, they do not have citizenship there. Instead, they have the right to live there permanently. This is very different from Jews who were born in the city and have full rights as citizens. Since 1967, Israel has been quietly forcing Palestinians to leave the country by making it hard for them to keep their legal status. Also, Israel has built a dozen fortified Jewish-only settlements in East Jerusalem. These settlements are home to about 200,000 Israelis. In the meantime, Palestinians are punished for illegal building by not getting building permits and having their houses torn down. These events paint a complicated and tense picture of the city at the intersection of faith and history, where there is a constant battle for power and rights being taken away. For Muslims, the noble sanctuary is home to the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is the third holiest place in Islam, and the Dome of the Rock, which dates back to the 7th century, and is thought to be where the Prophet Muhammad went to heaven. For Jews, this area has a lot of historical significance, because it is thought to be the holy ground where the first Jewish synagogue stood. But Jewish law and the Israeli rabbinate say that Jews can't go into the building or pray there because it is too holy to step on. Inside this important building is a remarkable construction called the Western Wall. It is called the Wailing Wall by Jews because it is a sad reminder of the Second Temple. In Muslim custom, it is called the Al-Buraq Wall. This is because it is thought to be where the Prophet Muhammad tied Al-Buraq, the mythical creature that carried him to heaven, to talk to God. When Saudi Arabia's king heard that President Trump planned to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital, he spoke up. He was worried about the effects of such a bold move. Despite the high standing of Jerusalem and the Al-Aqsa Mosque, he warned that such actions could make Muslims all over the world very angry. Jerusalem's noble sanctuary stands as a symbol of deep devotion and has the power to spark emotions and stir hearts all over the world in this tapestry of faith and reverence. Since 1967, Jordan and Israel have had a deal that says that Waqf, an Islamic trust, is in charge of the inside of the complex, while Israel is in charge of security on the outside. Non-Muslims were allowed to visit the spot during certain times, but they were not allowed to pray there. Still, a lot of temple groups like the Temple Mount Faithful and the Temple Institute are fighting against the Israeli government's rule that Jews can't go to the site. In the holy area, these groups want to build the third Jewish temple. Even though the Israeli government says it wants to keep things the same on the spot, some members of the government give money to these groups. The Temple Mount Faithful said in 1990 that they wanted to put a cornerstone for the third temple where the Dome of the Rock is now. This statement led to protests and a terrible massacre in which Israeli police killed 20 Palestinians. In 2000, Israeli politician Ariel Sharon and about 1,000 Israeli police officers went to the holy spot to make a point. His action was done on purpose to support Israeli claims over the disputed area. At the time, Prime Minister Ehud Barak and Palestinian leader YASSER Arafat were in the middle of peace talks led by the U.S., which included talks about how to share Jerusalem. Sharon's entry into the compound started the Second Intifada, a time of fierce fighting, in which more than 3,000 Palestinians and about 1,000 Israelis died. In May 2017, on the 50th anniversary of Israel taking over East Jerusalem, the Israeli government met in tunnels under the Al-Aqsa Mosque for their weekly meeting. This action, which was meant to honor the liberation and unification of Jerusalem, made Palestinians very angry. Israel already makes it hard for Palestinians to get into the complex. For example, the separation wall was built in the early 2000s. Palestinians from the West Bank can't get into Israel because of this wall. Only Palestinians over a certain age who live in the occupied West Bank are allowed to go to Jerusalem on Fridays. Other Palestinians must ask for hard-to-get permits from Israeli authorities. Because of these rules, there's a lot of traffic and stress at the checkpoints between the West Bank and Jerusalem, where tens of thousands of people need to go through security checks to get to Jerusalem to pray. The area around Al-Aqsa Mosque has been a simmering pot of conflict for years. On May 5, 2021, Israeli troops raided the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound. Many Palestinians were killed and dozens were taken into custody. Hamas responded to this event, which led to a war between Israel and Gaza that lasted 11 days. Many fights have broken out inside the property because Israeli settlers have tried to pray there, which is against the rules. Tensions hit a peak when Israel closed off the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound for the first time since 1969. This happened after a gunfight between Palestinian Israeli citizens and Israeli forces that left one person dead. In July 2017, thousands of Palestinians gathered to pray on the streets near Lions Gate, which is one of the exits to the Old City, during Friday prayers. When Israeli troops used violence to stop the peaceful protests, the situation got worse and hundreds of people were hurt. In occupied East Jerusalem and the West Bank, 4 Palestinians were killed by gunshots. One of them was shot by an Israeli settler. But recently, the tensions rose again about the demolition of the Temple Mount. But what caused that? The visit of an Israeli minister to the Temple Mount sparked a wave of criticism and made things worse between Israel and Palestine. In response, Palestinian leaders made a mistake by talking about storming the site, which made an already dangerous situation even worse. The Temple Mount is an important place for both Jews and Muslims. Because of this, Palestinians and Arabs have wanted to take control of the mountain and stop Jews from ever going there again. Even though legally anyone can go to the Temple Mount, only Muslims are allowed to pray there. This rule has caused trouble for Jewish visitors, who have been trying more and more to get into the holy spot. In 2022, there were about 50% more Jewish tourists to the Temple Mount than the year before. Mixed responses have been given to the fact that more and more Jews want to visit the site, which has made the fight for control of the Temple Mount even more intense. In April 2023, during Ramadan prayers, Israeli authorities used excessive and unjustified force against Palestinian Muslims, exercising their right to worship. At least 31 Palestinians were injured, and paramedics were reportedly prevented from providing medical treatment to the wounded. Israeli forces forcefully entered the mosque, used stun guns, grenades, tear gas, and indiscriminately beat Muslim worshippers, including elderly individuals and women. Francesca Albanese, the UN Special Rapporteur, expressed deep concern over the reckless and unlawful actions of Israeli forces, which allowed Jewish Israelis to enter the compound in violation of the status quo agreement. She highlighted the anxiety among Palestinians due to the desire of some Israeli settlers to destroy the mosque or convert parts of the compound into a synagogue. Similar violence has occurred during previous Ramadan months, exacerbating the daily violence under Israeli occupation. The ongoing violence has led to a dangerous escalation with rocket fire into Israel and missiles launched into Gaza, endangering civilians on both sides. Albanese expressed alarm at the situation, particularly the devastating impact it will have on Palestinians in Gaza, who have been trapped by an inescapable siege since 2007. People see the fight over the Temple Mount as a spiritual battle, not just a political or land disagreement. Islam wants to have full power over the whole site and is very against Jewish and Christian prayers being there. Muslims think that only Muslims should be able to pray at the Temple Mount because Jews and Christians praying there is a direct threat to their faith. This spiritual aspect makes the ongoing conflict more complicated and adds to the strong feelings around the spot. The power relationships are shown by the way the Temple Mount looks. It's important to remember that the Dome of the Rock wasn't meant to be a mosque at first. About 20 years after that, the Al-Aqsa Mosque was built on the Temple Mount's southern side. Inscriptions on the Dome of the Rock, which is also called the Golden Dome of the Rock Mosque, say things like, God has no son, which shows that Muslims don't believe Jesus is God's son. There are a lot of historical and religious reasons why people want to control the Temple Mount. The site is described in the Bible and is very important to many different religions. For Jews, it is the place where God told Abraham almost 4,000 years ago to kill his son Isaac as a sacrifice. King David bought the land so he could build an altar there, and his son, King Solomon, built the first temple there. There was also the site of the Second Temple. This religious and historical selling adds more fuel to the fight over the Temple Mount. People talk about the chance that a third temple will be built in Jerusalem in the future. In the book of Ezekiel, there are hints that there was another temple, but it's not clear if this temple will be built before or during the time of the Kingdom of Peace. Some people think that Ezekiel's description of the temple could be a thorough picture of the New Jerusalem, which is talked about in the book of Revelation and is thought to come down from heaven. Some people think of the temple as a metaphor for the church. In the New Testament, people who believe in God are called the house of the living God. There are many problems with building a third temple because there are mosques on the Temple Mount. But divine intervention, like an earthquake or the rise of a leader who offers a solution that both Muslims and Jews can agree on, could make it possible to build a temple. In the end, God will decide what will happen to the Temple Mount. God's plan for the place may be different from what people think, and His plans will be carried out in the way He wants. As was said in the Bible, when the Lord Jesus comes back, there will be a new time of peace and righteousness in Jerusalem, making it the center of the world. People from all over the world will come to Jerusalem to learn from the Lord, and the Word of God will come from the city. Until then, the fight over who controls the Temple Mount will continue, and it will be complicated by history, religion, and politics. Thank you for watching. We hope this video has inspired you to delve deeper into the fascinating world of Bible prophecy. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking discussions.